Hello and welcome to the Emergency Services Times podcast, where you can hear the speakers who joined us on stage at the Emergency Services Show 2024. Talking about inclusive PPE, where does the conversation start? The fire service strives to be an inclusive employer and needs to ensure that cultural diversity is considered when providing PPE. Listen to our expert panel as they talk about the cultural challenges and how to ensure true inclusivity.
In terms of inclusivity, for me, it covers three different aspects. One is the buyer and the wearer, so understanding what it is that they need, what is it that they're doing, and making sure that they're aware of any initiatives or products that are available that they could use. The second thing is manufacturers. So what are manufacturers doing to make sure that we can effectively accommodate all body shapes and sizes, making sure that an inclusive employer can provide inclusive PPE. And the third area is standardisation, and Sarah, who's hiding around there, you can grab her afterwards if you'd like. She and I are doing a lot of work on standards, helping look at a new inclusive PPE standard. You might see there's some leaflets around. If you haven't got one, by all means pick one up. We're looking at developing a British standard that is to support the provision of inclusive PPE, and part of that is about educating buyers and giving them some kind of guidance on how they would be able to go about specifying inclusive PPE, but also from a manufacturer's point of view, making sure that you're taking things into consideration as you're developing and designing products. A really simple example is someone who is in a wheelchair. You need to think about the construction of garments so that there aren't seams sat in certain places that are going to create sores by the friction. So really thinking about a truly inclusive workforce, how do we do that? And then on top of that, what's happened next is there's a horizontal technical committee that's looking across Europe at all PPE standards, and there's a specific working group that's looking at kind of ergonomics. There's another group looking at firefighting PPE, so looking at how products are compatible together, and there's several others, but the one that we're looking at is inclusive PPE, so looking at PPE standards and how we can make them, not just in the UK but across Europe, be more inclusive in terms of the way that they are conducting testing and how the test methods are specified. So, on that note, I will introduce our lovely panel. Well, I won't. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. So if you'd like to start us off, Jayne.
Afternoon, everybody. I'm Jayne Moore. I work for Essex County Fire and Rescue Service as a watch manager in our technical services department. I've worked for the fire service for 32 years, and 16 almost of those have been in technical, dealing with PPE.
Thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Louise Bradley and I'm the technical and design coordinator for Cooneen at Work. I've worked with Cooneen for just over 5 years now within the technical department.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ryan, Managing Director of Tough King Footwear. I'm here just because we're a manufacturer and I was told that we need to be more inclusive, so I want to listen.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So we'll start off with what is going well. So what is it that, have we got any examples of kind of inclusive PPE that's really supporting cultural diversity and other considerations that are working well in the fire service? So Jayne, as the buyer and user, what would you say?
I think obviously for us, we're in a fully managed service, so that kit is selected some years ago. We're 5 years in now, and obviously technology does move on with time. We had a situation with a firefighter that joined a squad, and obviously he'd been through an assessment day and he'd had a helmet on and he'd done a couple of weeks and he'd had a helmet on, and then all of a sudden it came to like the helmet didn't fit and he had a cornrow hairstyle, and initially we thought because of his ethnicity it was to do with the cornrow, the style of the hair. So we contacted our PPE provider and we said, look, we've got an issue with this helmet, it really doesn't fit, we've extended it to full capacity, it doesn't fit, what can we do? And they just said, look, we're going to speak to the manufacturer. And we were really fortunate because very quickly the helmet was sent back to the manufacturer and they did some tweaks and they adjusted the helmet so it fitted him. But it turned out he was having similar problems with his cricket. He played cricket, his cricket helmet was the same issue. So yeah, that was a really good example of good teamwork between the PPE provider, ourselves as the end user, and the actual manufacturer to resolve something really quickly, and it worked.
Yeah, being able to find a solution.
Exactly.
As you said, I think when we talked about that example before, it turns out that the guy actually had quite a large head anyway.
Exactly.
And so therefore being able to accommodate those full body sizes was the key part. So yeah, really good. And Louise, in terms of your experience in designing and being a technical person looking at PPE, what sort of examples have you got where you've done things for the fire service that have helped with inclusivity?
Yes, so within the likes of South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue, we worked very closely with the end users, their user groups and work streams to create a menopause and maternity range. So it was a lot of work and a lot of development, a lot of wear trials, but it was brilliant to get the end user feedback and get their input on the design and the fabrics and the fit.
Yeah, perfect. So again, that work between the supplier and the actual wearer is really key
so important,
to that piece
very,
as well.
very important.
Brilliant. And Ryan, I know we just had you on a minute ago talking about your boots and the last that you've developed for female fit as well, but I'm really interested in your kind of international experience in supplying lots of different markets, whether there's some kind of learnings or applications from some different markets that might be applicable in the UK.
Absolutely. Every market poses its own challenges and adjustments when you're designing PPE. I think one of the most common ones that's really been rearing its head is a lot of people asking for vegan footwear, not containing any traces of animal products. So automatically you just gravitate to thinking about the leather, but not a lot of people know that things like the adhesives can often include a lot of animal byproducts as well. So it's about fully auditing your supply chain and just making sure that everything conforms to their necessary standards.
Yeah. And we were talking about footwear, and it's been a problem that you've had in the past.
Yeah, I think again it comes back to the fact that when you're in a managed service for 8 years, the tender process prior to that as well, obviously technology moves on. And one of the things I was going to bring up today was actually, why is it when we provide alternative footwear for firefighters, it's at the detriment to the comfort, the protection and the performance? And yet today, I have walked around this show and it's been absolutely amazing to see how many products are now out there that not only look like a fire boot, they're not a rubber boot alternative, but we've also got female fire boots as well, when finally we're recognising that actually a woman's foot isn't the same as a man's foot. And I mean, that whole unisex thing is a real bugbear of mine. Like with workwear, I've spent 32 years in a service trying to find a pair of trousers that are comfortable to wear, and invariably a lot of our women go, I'm going to have the male trousers because they fit me better. And we need to start getting that right.
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing, if we're looking at providing inclusive PPE, station wear, like everything that a firefighter's wearing, if we're not engaging with the wearers, we don't know if we're creating a product range, designed in isolation from the user, and then you go, yeah, we've got a solution, here it is off the shelf, but actually it might not be fit for purpose, it might not work as the firefighter needs it to.
And I think there's also that thing that, I know that some companies in the past have put extra padding around the breast area for women. There is no evidence to support that is required. In fact, potentially you could be causing more breathability issues because they've got extra padding there which they don't need. So there's that side to it as well.
It is interesting, and there are different biological reasons why people need different fitting products as well. One of the other things that we have talked about before is if you have a hijab wearing firefighter. Now you would need that firefighter to wear a hijab that was flame retardant, but then also that wouldn't necessarily be adequate, or certainly as it stands today, that's not adequate for them to be able to go into a structural fire, and they would need a fire hood as well. And so again, you're creating additional thermal burden, and it's a challenge for industry to think about how do we work around that, because again, it's not okay to say, well, if you want to do this, you're going to have to put an extra layer on in an area that we know around the head is really, we need to keep that kind of as cool as possible, and why there's lots of work on kind of looking at venting in fire hoods and things now. So that's kind of a challenge for industry, I guess, because I don't think, as we sit here right now, that there's a solution. If anyone's got a solution around the room, like bring it over, like we're very open. But in terms of where we are with some of those things, I think there's still a lot of work to do in terms of developing it. So I think the other thing that I'd really like to think about is how we can learn from other sectors. So I know, Louise, you've done quite a lot of work in other sectors where you've been able to look at some specific products and make them so that they're much more inclusive. So do you want to talk through some of those?
Yeah, so within our technical department we have Cooneen Protection as well, which is the body armour side of the company. We have our own facility within our headquarters within 5 Mile Town in Northern Ireland, which is Home Office approved, and that's where all of our testing and development and all the fun things is tested. So so we supply body armour to UK forces, French police and New Zealand police as well, and many of those are also available in female fit, which has been developed for the female form, and it is also very adjustable to suit their body shape.
And that's what we were talking about in the last session about being fit to form, because different body types needs to be accommodated. So having that different fit so that you can then adjust it as well will allow people to really make something fit for them. So I guess being able to adjust any products as well is a good way for us to think about making things really inclusive so that people can kind of adjust as they go. And any others that you want to?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work as well with the NHS ambulance. So their current trouser that we supply is a unisex trouser, which is not suitable for any female really wear. So a lot of work has been gone into the whole fit and form of the trouser and the whole styling as well, and the fabric, which is equally as important, so that they're in the trouser for 8 to 10 hours a day, so it needs to be comfortable in their working environment. So yes, we have went from a unisex trouser to now a type 1, type 2 fit. So it's way more inclusive.
People have the choice then of which they want. Yeah. So again, making sure that product can fit people as they would want it to.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So I think one of the key messages is that we've kind of had is that working together as suppliers and end users is really critical to it. So Ryan, as a manufacturer, what can the fire service give you to help you better be able to kind of accommodate a diverse workforce of the future?
We touched a little bit on it in the previous session about things like key stakeholder groups. It's something that your team has done exceptionally well, particularly with the NHS, because we supply a lot of the footwear for them. And it's just about understanding, because there's just such a diverse array of different cultural groups and, like you said, different body types and whatnot. I mean, we've had just about every type of a bespoke inquiry you can imagine, people with amputated toes, people with all types of ailments where we need to make specialist types of footwear for. So I think, to answer your question, the best thing from a manufacturing perspective is if we can get sort of advanced knowledge, because so often, and I understand it's emergency services, so it's not like you're planning these things 6 months in advance, but when you're talking about technical PPE, there can be lead times on these technical specialist fabrics and materials that we're working with. So if we have any type of historical data, key stakeholder groups, things of that nature, it just helps us forward plan so that we can hold stock of those types of raw materials at the factory and just be prepared to turn the switch and get those made if there's somebody that needs that type of a product.
Yeah. And operationally, you were saying there have been some challenges in terms of like pool stock, for example, and how that's managed.
I mean, obviously we've had the contaminants issue building over recent years, and rightly so. You know, we need to protect our firefighters as best we can. But we're finding that particularly with bespoke measurements, and that's for male and for female firefighting PPE, we're getting recruits on their 14, 17 week, whatever the length of the course is,
Yeah.
go to BA, and actually because again it's that fully managed service, trying to get that pull stock, we haven't got that size, and it's like we've had females that have had to wear male kit for that period so that we can cover it. But obviously for us as a service, we absolutely need our firefighters to pass that course, because otherwise they're not passed as a competent firefighter.
Yeah.
So it is part of that course. And if when somebody comes in and they're sized for PPE and it's determined that they are a bespoke measure, we need to be thinking quicker. Right, okay, we've got this coming up in a few weeks' time. What are we going to do about it?
What do we need for
But
that?
I also do really appreciate that for the suppliers of PPE, it's really difficult now because the contaminants has taken over, and like there's so much more PPE they're being asked to provide, which obviously wasn't planned for.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying about the kind of tender process, you have long contracts because
Absolutely.
this stuff is expensive and
very
you want the
expensive.
stability, and it's better for the supply chain when they've got that kind of longevity of contracts, so they can develop R&D, they've got the opportunity to do that. But there needs to be some sort of way of triggering a change, or if a supplier's got a new product that could make something better for someone, so it's a more inclusive product somehow, or they've expanded their size range,
Yeah.
or helmets are available in a bigger size, that kind of stuff. Being able as a supplier to have those conversations is really important
And
as well.
I think as well, obviously one of the biggest issues is that the female firefighters, although the numbers are coming up, I mean we're doing quite well, we've got a course of 18 with 4 females on it now, which is really good compared to what it used to be. But the same point is that percentage of pull stop for female kit is a lot lower than the male kit, because the balance isn't there yet.
Yeah. And it's understanding that, as you said, Brian, like what does your female firefighters look like? What does your fire service look like? We mentioned in the last session as well that the NFCC are looking at conducting some sizing on female firefighters, so that we can get a better view of what a female firefighter body type looks like, and body shapes, and the whole variety of them, because if you look around the room there's not 2 of us that are the same size or shape. So it's thinking about that, but also the longer term strategy is to look at what a firefighter looks like and to capture that data. And the idea will be that there is a firefighter and you've got a whole range of sizes that will fit firefighters, and the new kind of, once that data is available, that can then be put out to industry to say, this is what our community of firefighters looks like, every single one. How do you do that? And you may mean that you need to look at it regionally, there might be differences, you might need to look at it nationally and kind of be able to break it down, but that will be a really interesting project to kind of look at how we kind of do that in the future.
In terms of the standards changing, what's the timeline for anything actually happening with that?
Actually happening.
Do we know anything about that?
So in terms of standards, as in an EN standard, so EN 469, a lot of the standards are almost constantly under revision. They have a 5-year trigger to be reviewed. The work that we're doing on standards in terms of inclusivity is a little bit different. So we have set a massively ambitious target of getting the new standard in place within 18 months is the plan. However, Sarah and I, because we're a bit mad, have decided we're going to get this done by April. So we're hoping that in May, June next year that there will be a standard which will help support buyers to be able to ask questions, to make sure that they're putting things in their tenders that will allow them to procure more inclusive PPE as well. So that's the first step. On the sort of more European level, we're already starting those conversations. The European Commission did a report a couple of years ago now, I think it was, and they identified that in PPE alone, they looked at all standards for everything. There are 74 standards that are not fit for purpose currently in terms of being inclusive, and that they were raised as high risk to, in terms of like the lack of consideration there's been of diversity and inclusivity within the standards, and the second part is the level of risk to the wearer by not addressing the standard. And we're going to start looking at those as kind of like the key standards that we address primarily, and then move it forwards. And what we're hoping to do at the European level across the horizontal TC the horizontal technical committee, is to look at kind of creating some guidance for the people who are making standards within the vertical standards to say, hang on a minute, we've learned something over here, have you considered that? Or actually, this test method affects 10 different standards, we need to address that, and then we're fixing lots of problems. So it's not just looking at it really siloed. So that work will start happening in the new year. There's going to be a webinar on the 16th of January, which will show you how you can kind of what we're trying to do at the European level, and we'll hopefully give some hope that we're doing something and we're able to progress. Manufacturers, you need to start looking at it. Talk to your buyers, talk to the wearers, and buyers start thinking about being able to how you're specifying what it is that you need in your tender processes, especially considering the longevity of the processes in total. Cool. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you to the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening. If you like this session, then be sure to browse the rest of the programme for the show. Share the link and subscribe to receive updates on new content from us here at Emergency Services Times.